basically a little bit about what we personally do, what I do as a Vice President of Innovation. Basically, we try to leverage the 3,000 experts that we have in different technologies, in different industries, and help our customers to create new features, new products for their industries. Basically, leveraging the fact that we have all this expertise in different areas, which is typically difficult for our customers to have all the expertise all together. And the other is the fact that we can do fast prototyping of the solutions, so we can fast bring some innovation to their portfolio. So now let's get into why innovation. Why do we believe innovation is so important? And I will start with a personal story. When I was a teenager, I was traveling as a backpacker in Egypt, riding a donkey in Luxor. It was 45 degrees centigrade, really hot. And suddenly we saw a guy selling Cokes. So we said, oh, okay, that sounds perfect. So we approached the guy, said, how much for a can of Coke? He said, $5. Being in the Middle East, I said, wow, let's bargain. So I said, how can this be $5 when in Cairo it costs less than $1? And the guy said, very, very interestingly, he said, go to Cairo. So I then understood the importance of location in the business. And basically, the guy was having really a monopoly on the subject. And it happens many times in our businesses. We believe we are in a safe side where we do have control of the situation, but the environment typically changes, always changes. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. This environment, business don't operate in a vacuum. This environment can change because new competitors, technology, social trends, geopolitical changes, and many other reasons. So, for instance, let's imagine we carry with us, I don't know, with a GPS, a camera, a video camera, encyclopedia, calculator, radio recorder, barcode reader, several languages, dictionaries, maps, etc. What could we do? And if everybody was carrying that all the day, basically this is happening now. Basically, it's impressive how fast technology has improved that we can have all these features and many others, and probably in the future much more other functionality just in our pocket. So, and it will get even worse. Basically, everybody knows Moore's law, which was defined by Gordon Moore in 1965, saying that the number of transistors in a chip duplicates every 18 months. What does it mean for us? Basically, it means, for instance, that PCs or the computing power on a cell phone duplicates every 18 months. It doesn't sound so much. You say, okay, yes, a couple of years ago was somehow half slower than this one. But if we take it for looking at 10, 20 years, this is impressive. The graph that I'm showing here basically shows the speed of the first computer I bought was a personal computer, 4 megahertz in 1987, some 25 years ago. So it kind of talks about my age. Basically, and how fast this has improved and duplicating every 18 months. And today we don't talk about megahertz anymore in the computers. We talk about dual processors of 8 gigahertz or whatever. So let me see. Okay, so other things, important things that we see, not only computers, but memory capacity is increasing exponentially, bandwidth is increasing exponentially, and so on. So if we look at 10 years from now, if we apply the rule of Moore's law, basically we see that in 1 year and a half, this was done last year, basically. 1 year and a half it duplicates, in 3 years it makes 4 times. So basically, in 10 years from now, we'll have things that are 100 times faster, smaller, or cheaper. Or to put it in other ways, we will have iPhones for $5, or we will carry kind of the computing power of 100 iPhones per person, or everything will have an iPhone capabilities included. That's what when we are talking about the Internet of Things, for instance. Second conclusion is that technology is driving some marginal costs to zero. Data storage space, processing powers, bandwidth, digital distribution costs, etc. For instance, who hasn't noticed that the desert was changing? This is a clear example. Blockbuster, basically, they didn't see what were the changes in technology coming, so Netflix kind of ruined them. and they went to Chapter 11 a couple of years ago. The same you can say for Borders, bookstores, with Amazon, etc. So, okay, now that we know why should we innovate, the question is how can we innovate, and a little bit I will show what, as Globant, what we do. I think there are lots of methodologies out there. There's design thinking, brainstorming. There's many methodologies. I didn't want to bore you today with methodologies, but make a more 10,000 feet idea of what how all this works. First is I would say first thing is to ask the what if, just to foresee the future, thinking about how, if we have implementing something, how would it affect our business, the user experience, new applications. This is it's important to do it just thinking out of the box, using the brainstorming rules, understanding the customer, and in many cases, like ours, is bringing people from the outside that they are not biased with your industry, your technologies, or your company kind of way of doing things. So basically, this is a little bit what we do in Globant. We put together with our customers, which could be from the travel industry, banking industry, advertising industry. We put together people who are from different industries and technologies, and try to foresee what could be done by using, in our case, typically we look at technologies, but sometimes it's more, could be even business cases, business models, or something else. Once we like these future perspectives, the next step is asking us, why not? Why not doing that? And in many cases, that's important. The first stage, the brainstorming or the what if part, is more like a divergent time. Basically, we try to focus on creating a lot of ideas. Then we get to the convergent part phase, where we try to see which one of the ideas makes the better impact, and then ask ourselves why not to implement it. In many cases, we have our reasoning bring us to believe that something is not implementable, but if we start focusing on that and understanding what we will find that sometimes it's not so difficult. In many cases, there are some technologies or pricing or situations that make it available today or probably in a couple of years. So can we predict when? Yes. Basically, the Moore's law can be applied always. Somehow you can explain it or not, but basically if you make a graph, the logarithmic scale, you will see how well it behaves. So we can predict exactly what will the technology be bringing us in the next future. Somehow more difficult on social trends, geopolitical factors, but we can still think about some scenarios. Now the good news is 99% of the technology that will drive the next 10 years innovations is already available. Basically, if you look, for instance, nobody was really surprised by the fact that with the iPhone or with the iPad or with any other innovation. We've been surprised probably by the fact that Apple was entering the cellular market, or by the functionality, which was really cool, really good, or the look and feel. But everybody knew that this was kind of doable. It's not that it's a surprise. So simply what we should do is look at what's going on. Simply the technology for the next 10 years, it's already being used at being researched at universities, being used by the army, being used by heavy industry, or simply some other industries that basically they can afford running on something more expensive, slower technologies, or too big to implement. But once again, if we apply Moore's law, we can apply and understand that it will be twice as faster in every 18 months, twice as cheaper every 18 months, and twice as smaller every 18 months. So basically, we do have we can find the technology and understand when it will be ready for our issues. The last issue I'd like to present and discuss is the fact that I believe there is not such a thing as big, difficult problems. We may think that there are, but in my opinion, there are large problems composed of lots of easy-to-solve problems and a couple of small, difficult ones, which makes the approach completely different. Just if we see a big problem, we can feel overwhelmed by how much we have to solve. If we split it into that, we get into one specific problem that we can probably address. This is an example of a company I really think very innovative. given technologies, so they are the inventors of the pill cam, this pill that has a camera inside, and you can take it and will take pictures and send to a remote disk what's going on inside your digestive apparatus. When I first heard about them about 8 years ago or something like that, sounded like science fiction. And today still for many people looks like science fiction. Now, if you look at the problem and you analyze the different components, you will find that there is nothing that is really difficult to implement there, and even wasn't some 5, 6 years ago. Basically, you need a small camera. We already have these small cameras in our cellular phones. You need a LED. We have very cheap and good LEDs that we use for all kinds of purposes. The batteries are watch batteries, and etc. etc. So and transmitters, we do have a lot of cheap transmitters. So basically, if you see, if somebody would tell you, let's invent a pill that has a camera and transmit the information, would sound like crazy. If you start analyzing, you see that it's very doable and everybody could have done that. Talking with their VP of R&D, basically what I found is the most difficult part in their case was basically not the technology, but understanding what they call the atlas of the digestive apparatus, trying to understand what is good, what is wrong, and how to address that. Last but not least, I think basically for any innovation, execution is key. And in execution, we have the timing and the good enough, I would say. So basically, many great innovations fail because they've been brought to market too early. Sometimes the market is not ready, and sometimes, in many cases, the solution is not good enough to meet the customer expectations. For instance, the ones that are older like me can recall the Apple's Newton, which was fantastic, a tablet with hand recognition, but simply didn't work good enough. So that was really a failure. Or most tablets before iPad. The iPad wasn't the first tablet that we've ever seen. There were lots of tablets, but they didn't provide the user experience that the iPad brought. And some of them were very specific, for instance, uses in the healthcare system, in hospitals, or some other places. Now, whenever we say good enough, you have to see that there is a window. It cannot be less good, so it should be enough. But on the other side, we have to be very careful on not over-designing, basically. If we do over-design, it will take longer time to market, be more expensive, and probably be more difficult to understand how to use it. So basically, we need this. Sounds easy, but it's not so easy, just to understand what means from the market point of view good enough. So with this, I'm done, and I'm passing the word to Marco, which has been working with us in some projects at the BBVA. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. Hi, everyone. Thanks to the Globant team for inviting me to participate in this series. I'm Marco Bressan, and I'm in charge of BBVA's Big Data and Open Platform efforts. So what I would like to talk about you is our approach at the bank for innovation, our challenges, and specifically how open models are helping us out. I think you will find a lot of common points with what Pablo just presented. He talked about a lot of very concrete trends, and I think you will identify, because I'll be talking about the impact they have had or they are having in the financial sector. So BBVA is see next slide here. Okay. BBVA is one of the largest and most solid financial institutions in the world. It is also recognized as an innovation leader. Some of the numbers are there. Being an innovation leader is not frequent for a bank. We have been one of the first banks to establish a global innovation network, an important innovation center, a couple of well-known innovation projects. And the investment of BBVA in innovation spans from technology and business development all the way to seed and venture capital. So I'll now give you more concrete examples. In a nutshell, what you see this table here is what a bank does. So this is probably a very, very boring table. When I started working at BBVA about a year ago, less than a year ago, my former colleagues were asking me, at bank, why on earth would you go want to work for a bank? I guess they were thinking on this slide over here. But the interesting one is actually this one. Every single service within a bank portfolio, or almost every single one, is currently being disrupted by outsiders. And these outsiders that you see all over this list are typically non-financial digital institutions. We all know here probably PayPal. Amazon is currently giving credits to merchants. Mint is providing wealth management solutions that using bank data that banks have not been able to provide before. P2P lending has the potential of being to bank microloans or personal loans, what P2P music sharing has been to music labels. So the list continues. So for somebody who loves innovation like I do, this is like a dream scenario. You've been disrupted all over the place. And on top of that, one interesting thing is that banks still have the pockets needed to try to do something about it, to try to change. So this would not be the case of, for instance, media companies or newspapers or the borders that Pablo mentioned that might be disrupted from all over the place but no longer have the means or the resources to face this situation. We know we need to innovate at the bank, and if we want to be alive in a decade from now. And we also know that there's some guidelines, like Pablo shared, but there's no concrete recipe for innovation. There's some interesting findings still, and I think everybody who wants to consider innovation should take into account. For example, when somebody asks me for a recommendation on a book about innovation, I'll go blind with Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma. If you've read it, I'd probably say it, read it again, because it's probably one of the best things written on innovation. Another fine tool is what you see here. This is called Walcott's Innovation Radar. It's quite useful because it partitions innovation in a way that we can make sense out of it, because innovation can mean so many different things. And basically, Walcott proposes 12 different categories, depending on whether the innovation, broadly speaking, aims at new offerings, new technologies, the what, or new customers, a new market in terms of customers, new processes, that's more internal, or new presence, new ways to reach the market. Companies seldom reach a single innovation direction, a single dimension along which to innovate, but there's certainly some top innovators along some of these directions. Take Virgin over there in the brand. It has built a consistent and unique brand across its whole group. It spans its whole group. Take Toyota. Everybody knows Toyota, about how they reinvented the whole manufacture process in the 60s and 70s. Google made real how to capture value from search. People didn't know how to do that, so they really were true pure innovators along that line. At one point, Walcott, when doing the innovation radar, what's interesting for us is he studied the innovation practices of 4 Latin American banks. Those are the 4 lines that are projected in the radar. Except for one of the banks that had a really strong commitment to branding, then there was one that had a little bit less commitment to where, probably because they were just thinking about where to put their new branches. You can see that banks are not very innovative and basically all over the place, something you certainly don't have to do. So at BBVA, we understand we need to pursue disruptive innovation. And the reason we need to do that is not only growth. I mean, companies do not only need to pursue disruption or innovation because of growth. Because of the table that I've just shown you, we need to do this because if we don't do it, there's many people out there who want to do our business, and we might end up having our own Kodak moment, right? Especially because these disruptors are not banks, it doesn't make much sense to focus on your processes or on your organization or what branches or really doing too much about the brand. What we understood at one point is that if you really want to succeed, if you really want to give a fight and provide new products, you need to go along the directions of your core, your products, your platform, your solutions, your customers. And if you want to have a bank that is actually developing technologies and developing completely, closed solutions, you first need to understand what you're really good at. and when you've had a business that has been highly profitable over years, you're really not too good at telling what you're good at. So this is why the concept of open platform is so critical to our strategy. An open platform is an environment, is basically what you see here. What you see is the table I showed at the beginning, but it's just broken up and exposed outside as a service. It looks at what you're really good at and exposes that as a service. And it allows the rest of the world to leverage those skills to build new solutions. So there's a ton of examples of this. Amazon is great at logistics. And any small merchant from all over the world can just piggyback on through their API on Amazon's logistic infrastructure. We at banks are good at payments. We're good at assessing risk. We're good at managing huge volumes of transactions in a very secure way, and so forth. So basically, our open platform exposes these skills as a service. And maybe you're an online retailer who wants to provide credit to your clients. You should not build your own scoring engine. You would just use the scoring engine of somebody who's good at risk assessment, a bank in this case. So it's not easy. It's easier said than done. I mean, a huge challenge in innovation is culture, and in banks, it's an important part. And it's difficult to change the mindset. You know, banks and the whole concept of open don't necessarily get along. So that's the first challenge that I personally have in my position. But also, there's changes that are more subtle. So, for instance, understanding that your clients are no longer end users, but developers. You know, something that PayPal is extremely good or has understood already for a while. So here I just wanted to say that with doing this innovation, focusing on an open platform from a bank's perspective, we're not claiming we're new, we're inventing any kind of wheel. There's many people, and especially a digital business, who've been doing that for a while. You see Best Buy, for instance, they're good at managing inventory and products, etc. They have exposed that skill, that core, through 7 APIs, and we see third parties integrating their Best Buy in their marketplaces, in price recommendation engines. There's even cool tools that application developers have done for new ways of picking up your merchandise in Best Buy using those tools. So now what I wanted to tell you is about one specific API we are exposing, one specific value we believe the bank has that we think that needs to be opened up, and that is data. At BBVA, we process over 20 million transactions every single day. That's about the same number of transactions processed by Walmart every single day. And this includes any financial transaction, payments, ATM operations, etc. So one thing about financial data is that it's extremely valuable. You know, I like to compare social network data such as a Facebook like to an intention of votes, and financial data in that case would be actually voting on something, right? So let me share with you and finish with that a couple of examples of how we are first anonymizing this data, then exposing it as an API. And let's take a look at what can happen or what is happening already to our partners when we give access to this data. At the world scale, here's one example. In this map, we see which countries spend more when they travel as tourists to Madrid. You know, we know that a lot of Americans or French come to Madrid, but we know much more. We know that Chinese love fashion, that Americans love eating, and that the French love museums. We know that Americans get up early. For instance, in this particular example, we're working from this knowledge that we learned from our banking data. We're working with the city of Madrid to adapt their opening hours of restaurants, because there was currently no offering. Your American getting up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning, Madrid is dead. There's no place to go and have your breakfast, right? We know how tourists move within the country. There's a nice video if anybody's interested online called, if you just search BBVA Easter on YouTube, that's what that video was done with the MIT when we gave them access to this data, and it shows how people spend in Spain during the Easter season. So if we go down and we look at the regional level, here's what happens when you give our data to regional business development associations. They use the data to understand the commercial relationships between cities. That central node over there is Barcelona. We see how commercial access emerge, and this is quite useful for urban planning, right? If I'm a city major and we might know that during Christmas, the people from my town typically go way to about fashion, then maybe I need to do some kind of incentives to have fashion stores open up in my own town to capture that part of the business. It's just an example. If you zoom in into the neighborhood level, here's a nice application, and this is a similar work to one we're working actually with Globant. Every day, if you're a city manager, you're approached by an event organizer saying, if you really do this gas weekend, there's going to be 100,000 tourists and you make $10 million over the weekend, right? And with the data that we have, we can measure that. We can measure that to the dollar. We know exactly what people spend on a normal weekend and what they spent on that weekend. We can aggregate that and see at the block phase level, for instance, in this picture of Bilbao, who actually benefited from the event and who did not do so well. The red ones did not do so well. So you know, we talk about a particular event, but we can talk about urban planning. So imagine I want to do a new bus stop or a new bus line. I can anticipate the impact on business using these kind of tools. One nice thing is that dotted map over there is our sensor. Our sensors for this particular case are all the point of sales, all those machines where you pass your credit or debit cards when you do a payment. Those are our sensors, what's being paid and where. If we move to the street level, here's another story. This is what happens when you give our data to the local commerce chamber. And they were looking at the busiest street, the most busy commercial street in Barcelona. And you see right away that there's one, and that's the number of transactions, and histogram of transactions per store along the street. And you see that there's one store that accounts for 15% of all the sales. That's quite interesting already, right? But I find it much more interesting that that store shares 40% of its clients with neighboring shops, and there's stores that are much more selfish than that. That doesn't usually happen. So what we learn is that this store represents a very strong positive externality to everyone nearby. So if I'm opening up for business in this part of town, I want to be close to this guy, right? And last example, last slide, is now we go down to the commerce level, to the commerce scale. And we know that here we're giving information. We can give this information to commerce, and people claim that many great things happen when you share information. I don't know how much true that is. You know, sure, there's a lot of entropy when you share information. But one of the things that is true is that it allows the small to play big, right? And if you give this kind of information to small merchants, they can compete much more effectively with those large competitors that might have their own fidelity cards and so forth, right? So a merchant today only knows about their own clients, their area, their own business, and what our tool does is allows them to know how they're doing, compare their performance with others, know about their clients, but their non-clients, know what their clients do before and after, not the people, but the group of their clients, before and after visit them, who they're sharing clients with. They can do partnerships maybe with those commerce that they're sharing clients with. They know what their non-clients are doing, if they can fulfill a need that they're not understanding just because they're looking at their clients, etc. So this is a tool that we're developing to give this kind of information to small and medium enterprises that, at least in Spain, we're talking about 4 million. And thanks to our open model, developers can now develop tools like this one, and hopefully many more to come. So what I want to say here is that the open platform, it is an innovation, but what's even most important is that this kind of tools can act as catalyzers of innovation too. So thank you very much.
Well, hello everybody, and well, we have already seen from Pablo's words, what are why we need to innovate, and from Marcos, how the BBVA is approaching the need to innovate. So today, how they are trying to avoid disruption. So today I'm gonna try to tell you some few learnings that we had at Globant on something that we are thinking on. How do we create a company that sustainably will innovate? And now, according to a recent Bain study, the top, one of the top three priorities for any CEO is how to innovate. And they identify two reasons why they can't. First one being a risk-averse culture, and the second is the inability for them to execute rapidly enough the ideas they have so they can prove it. So this is important, but what the world in which we are is also, we need to be able to understand the environment in which our corporations move to see how do we react to that. First thing we are seeing is that consumers are more and more demanding best applications. They are trying to, they are becoming extremely demanding of whatever services or products you are producing. Here we are seeing an application that we work on, the LinkedIn mobile app, that if you look at it, it's at the crossroads of many hot trends out there. So pretty much any successful software nowadays will be at the crossroads of being a mobile application. People will be expecting to have a seamless interaction across devices during the day. That puts a lot of pressures on moving content into the cloud. And of course, everything is social. We want to leverage as much as possible on our social graph to become more smarter and to also recommend good things to our friends. So leveraging on that will be affecting how successful our efforts as corporations are. Of course, gamification will drive a lot of addictiveness to whatever we do and keep users happy. And big data, as we have seen, will allow you to uncover different knowledge and also to be able to dig into a world of options. So if you purchase these products, chances are that you will also like that one. You see that on Amazon every day. But when we when we analyze this, how many of these trends were actually existing only 8 years ago? And the truth is, was none. There were no iPhones. Nobody was speaking about the cloud. Certainly, nobody was speaking about big data gamification, and Facebook was just beginning. So we need to understand that the vast majority of the innovation is happening at the boundaries level on technology. Technology has been transformed from a productivity tool through ERP, CRMs, supply chain in the 90s, to a way to establish for the first time a way to connect our companies with consumers directly, creating new experiences. But in order to seduce those consumers, we need to react to all those things that are pretty new for the vast majority of the companies. This is one of the things we have, but I would argue that we are still using old managerial methods to manage our organizations. So if we want to react, and we continue to use very hierarchical structures where only the clever people making decisions will be at the top of the pyramid, and we don't allow for all our employees to have a voice, I would argue that we can hardly keep up with innovation, because all your people in your organization will be in the know of what needs to change, but many times they are not, they don't feel empowered to do so. So flatter organizations are needed. Technology enables for newer ways of communicating, so you need to take that into account. not only we have this problem, but also the reality of the generation we are dealing with, which is the core of our workforce, is this. A new generation that every HR department finds a challenge. And I believe that that's why they don't understand it. Youngsters are now digital, they have been born in a digital world, learning not to be just a passive consumer, but mostly a social producer. They have high expectations about the organizations where they work. They are feedback driven. They've been born in a world in which in this time they get answers to anything. And that drives them a sense of urgency that they want to actually enhance all the time their career very, very fast. Also, they have blur boundaries between hierarchies and also free time and work time. So people speak a lot about work time, work from home, but I believe we should speak more of pleasure at work. So my question is, if we are using old management methods to deal with our workforce in a workforce that we don't understand, and that at the same time we are pressured to innovate, is how can we keep up with competition and be in good fit to compete in the future? So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I believe that there are some good things that we can do. And the reasons are mainly classified in two aspects that Marco was speaking about. One is culture. You need to foster an innovation culture. The second is, how do you accelerate testing new ideas? I will speak first about culture. And by looking at what's happening on communities like YouTube or Facebook that thrive, you see a lot of people collaborating and producing just for the sake of it, because it's inherently something that we want to do, that it's pleasure to have, and that it's an activity where we can get feedback continuously. So what will happen if we can create organizations that mimic somehow these organizations in the real world? That was what we have been trying to do at Globant. And I will share with you some learnings that we had during the process. First pillar of motivation for us is autonomy. It's trying to give our employees a lot of freedom in order to choose as many options as they can on their daily work. That could take the place of, for example, letting them choose how to dress up, when to show up, which office to work on, what project to work on. But also it takes the place of many processes in which we allow them to come up with ideas. So right now, for example, I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. at National Geographic Society. A few weeks ago, together with about 50 Glovers, we crowdsourced ideas. We invited people from all over the organization to show up and come up with new ideas to solve many of these customer challenges. So that's something that is certainly encouraging. Another thing that you can do is, as technology pressures us and enables us, you can explore what can this technology mean to your business. It is not this, it's no longer the case in which you will be thinking on an outing, okay, what can I do better? But mostly, technology will be accelerating your capabilities and opening new doors. So at the Globant Labs is a place where we can explore these ideas, being that robotics, bioinformatics, biometrics, augmented reality. There are different things that we are doing there just because they fancy to explore. So you need to create an organization where you can foster that kind of exploration. This is an initiative that was also very good for us, is from time to time to create contests. So working with Nike, for example, on the Nike running social platform, we wanted our guys to tell us how to drive, what ideas they have to socialize around the sporting activity. And I encourage you to do that. Second pillar of motivation is mastery. If we are going to be willing to increase our, to enhance our career all the time, we need to create an environment that resembles a little bit what we expected from a company, but also blends what we expect from a university. So at Globant, we try to do first of all, everything starts with how you bring talent. At the beginning, we were sending encrypted messages that only clever people could decrypt to find the riddle, then to solve it. They needed to be very good programmers. And after solving it, they went to that number.com to send the resume, and they needed to hack the computer to submit it. That speaks about creating organizations where intellectual challenge is something important. I encourage you to do that. But also, once you have brought people into organization, you need to actually think on how to make your people think outside of the box. So some time ago, our communications team started with what they call flip thinking events. And here on this picture, we are seeing a NASA engineer that came to Buenos Aires to show us how he landed the Curiosity rover on the surface of Mars. This is, you can get content from universities, from customers, even from your own employees, to try to create an environment where people will be exposed to different things. As your company grows into silos, I believe that it's important to share knowledge. So again, mimicking what was happening with YouTube, what we did is created a platform that is like a YouTube for our project. So we can upload our experiences and create a content repository with all the expertise that we have, based on the intrinsic motivation of people to show off what kind of work they've been doing and to get feedback. And third pillar for this is purpose. This generation has been grown in a place where they can make a difference, and as long as we can allow them to make a difference while they are at work, then we have a business. Otherwise, people will eventually leave. So these guys in La Plata were showing me a Globant sign with maybe 5,000 soda cups. I didn't understand at the beginning what they wanted to do, but what they were looking for was to create, to promote the recycling of soda cups to help a local science institute. So I believe that giving your people vision about where you are heading is important to motivate this generation. Second part of my presentation is about achieving escape velocity. I like this idea, which is the speed needed to break free from a big gravitational body, which is typically the culture of continue to do the things that have been successful in the past. And I believe that's something that Marco will surely share with me. Being in a big organization, typically people do not want to change the status quo. So some learnings that we have on that, on how to change is, first, you will need to get talent. You need to open up for that. Through hackathons or these tribal events, you're able to connect with the talent you're going to need to nurture your innovation efforts. Also, you need to speed up the feedback process. As people, typically organizations give feedback once a year. What we wanted to achieve is to have more immediate feedback to our people, because that sits on the basis of getting better and better. So gamification of your experience is important. Here on the walls of this picture, we are seeing our corporate values. On the right side, we are seeing an application that we use to send stars to one another. So that gives us, not only it gives feedback, creates a social tissue within the organization, but also allow us to perforate all the organization and to try to select high potential employees. We also believe that we are in times in which you need to collaborate with other corporations. Here we were doing a binational hackathon with British Telecom, just to do open source for fun. Exploration is something that you need to do to find new avenues. I believe another very important thing is to embrace agility. Processes are important. As you move faster into a market that demands, that's extremely competitive, you will need to put the user in the center of the design of your whatever products or solutions you're going to bring. So being able to react is important. What processes you use are important. So agile process have been key for us to deliver the kind of things we are doing. That also involves how do you hire external help. Typically companies have been working in a world in which they tend to know everything, so they then write 400 pages of documentations trying to do an RFP process and go out and look for help. I don't believe we are in that time. I believe that in the times that comes, you need to start partnering up with companies who are bringing other type of capacity. So, for example, earlier we saw the trends that we were doing that are embedded into any successful product. The way we organize at Globant is by creating what we call studios, which are large organizational units that create capacity on all these trends. And then we assemble multidisciplinary teams that we call pods. So essentially, our relationship with customers has been transferred into a dialogue over problems, not about people. It's not you're not looking into just provide me a developer, but also solve me this problem. And we also develop an incentive program that aligns our incentives. As our customers get more productivity, we get an increase in our rates, but also that will get translated into a team. Also, you will need to be fast enough to prototype. So, this ATM that we built for BBVA with using 3D printers and open hardware, we did it in 30 days. And it proves that now you can execute and you can even move to other areas that were unthinkable of, like hardware for us. And also, we are finalizing, but I encourage you will need to have, we are going to be living in a multi-channel, multi-device environment. You won't be having, you can only discount that there will be more and more devices all the time, that you will need to provide a seamless experience across all of them without even knowing what your users will have, because they will keep the same expectation that you will continue that experience. You will provide this kind of solid experience. So in order to do that, you will need to create frameworks like Marcos was explaining, like APIs, so you can enable internal and external innovation to happen on top of your strengths. You will need to open your data to create new avenues and to allow more people to get insight on that. But I would also think you will need to create frameworks for the development. So you will need to clean up your architecture. So you think once on every solution you are going to create, you will need to create it once, and it will need to run on different devices that we are helping some of our customers to do. These initiatives have also allowed us to reinvent our business. BBVA have been trying to become more innovative because otherwise they would be disrupted. We also did our part, by trying to reinvent ourselves. In that case, all these efforts led us to a place in which we started providing a new kind of service that is called innovation as a service. And we've been doing that for many customers. So we can talk about that in case you need it. But thank you very much for everything. Now we are open up for questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to read some of the questions, so all the speakers are open to answer. One of the first questions was, how do you bring innovation in universities? That was the first part. And what are the first steps to do that? Or how was the first step at the bank when you have such a fast, strong culture? I don't know, Marco, if you want to start, and then we can go to Giver and Pablo.
Hey, how about I start with the last part,
Yes.
the first steps at the bank. And I think there's another question before. How do you convince and engage the management of corporate formal institutions such as a bank to embrace it? I think it's very similar, right? So
Yes,
I'll give those a shot, and then the universities I'll leave for Guido or Pablo. But I think the first step to bring innovation or to start changing innovation culture is that institutions first need to admit they need to innovate, you know. It's like Alcoholic Anonymous. You have to stand up and say, I need to innovate, I need to innovate. And that's not always easy. Institutions, especially successful ones, are closed in their own processes. They think they're great, and one day they find out they're Nokia, right? So the first thing to avoid that, or at least to make management want to change, is to help them look outside. I think that is very important. If you have some kind of technology or innovation practice within the company, an important role of that practice is to educate management. And a lot of times management do not pay much attention to what's happening inside. And if you show them examples of what their competitors are doing, then they will want to run. So I think that's number one, motivate that change. And once you admit that you want to change, try to isolate it. Don't mix innovation with the other processes. Once you have the support of management, because otherwise it will be killed by everyday, as I always say, doing a new button in the product you already have might bring you 100 million the next day. But doing innovation might bring you 100 million only in 10 years. So every decision will kill that innovation. And then the last thing is you need to show success. I mean, you need to try to do not so long-term projects, show that innovation also translates into some kind of success. In this sense, I think that, we're in a very different situation than 10 years ago, where in some cases companies just wanted to innovate because of innovation and have ideas and hackathons and everything. Today, we're at the bottom of that hype cycle. And managers want to see that innovation can bring them value. So if you manage to do those things, I think you will have a lot of support inside any company.
Okay, I will take on the other question about how do you connect with universities. Not a couple of months ago, we've been at the Balseiro Institute, which is very well known for nuclear engineering and many other things. And while speaking to their management team, they were giving awards to scientists who could create a great business plan, and I found it to be very odd. I don't believe that necessarily a good scientific can make a good entrepreneur, but I would rather think that a good association is important. So Pablo Brenner, who's here, he went to Balseiro to work with them on creating a knowledge transfer program where executives could travel to Bariloche in the south of Argentina to get knowledge that about what was happening. I believe we need to create more opportunities for that knowledge to be known, to be shared, rather than at this time we are very closed, and people who are in science are very focused on what they do, but we need more connectivity.
Hi, this is Pablo. I'd like to add something specifically to universities. One thing I think we need to change the way we teach entrepreneurship in most of the universities. It's being done in some of them, but till now there's a lot of focus on the business plan. And whenever people present business plan, the focus on the teachers is on the financial side of the business plan. Which is okay. This is something that people should know about, but if you are only going to measure the output of an entrepreneurship class on the financial terms of a plan, so you are basically cutting off all the innovation. Innovation is a lot about trial and error and making mistakes. So I think probably a part of the classes should focus on the innovation side of the business model, on the thinking process, and the evaluation should be done on the thinking process of this plan, and not so much on the financial results. Because the more innovative you are, the less you know what will be the financial results. And if we take it back, one thing is university, but it's worse what we are doing at schools for kids. Basically, the way we are teaching kids is basically trying to make them avoid mistakes. And basically, the only way to learn to be innovative is to do a lot of mistakes. So basically, I think if we really want to foster innovation, we have to rethink a lot of things.
I have another one, and that's perhaps the last because we are running out of time. We can take this one and then we finish. The other one is, currently some people build a startup business, and once they finish a development, either they sell the whole business or get attractive offers to trade it. For instance, Instagram, Evernote, etc. I wonder to know, what do you think about this trend?
I believe, first of all, the landscape is getting complicated for product companies. Why? Because you are facing a lot of competition out there. There are not a lot of angry birds out there. So a lot of people is trying to try this luck into the marketplace, and very few succeed. So that will involve a lot of trial and error. I believe that companies who are able to establish themselves as a platform, like Twitter did, or Mercado Libre, or Apple with the App Store, are the ones who are going to be benefit the most. Of course, there is always the possibility to create a success, a home run like Instagram, but that will require a lot of focusing into into pain points that you want to be solved, and be extremely good at mastering all these things that I mentioned earlier. Just last night, I ordered my first cab by using Uber, and that's an amazing experience. And you need to look at those kind of mini applications that are allowing us to organize ourselves in ways that couldn't be possible before those mobile devices were with all of us all together and all the connectivity we have. And once you start realizing this model, you can easily try to figure out other ways, other problems that need to be solved. I don't know if you want to add something else on your side.
Yeah, here is Pablo. I think the fact that some companies, once they reach some critical mass, they are acquired is part of how the market works, and it will continue happening. Yeah. But what typically happens is these guys, after 2 or 3 years in the new company, they leave the company and they start doing a new startup. So it's a continuous renovation itself. For instance, if you look, many of the successful startups of the last 5-10 years are ex-PayPal executives that basically were bought by eBay, and after a couple of years, they just move on and started doing some new stuff. So I think it will continue happening. Successful companies will be acquired by the big companies that sometimes they cannot be innovative by themselves, and they have to buy innovation. This is happening, but this doesn't stop innovation from happening. I would say even the opposite. It continues giving fuel to innovation. Fausta?
Okay, so well, we are running out of time, and we say it was going to be only 1 hour. So if I don't know if you have more time, we can take the last one, and that's it. But it is better to approach innovation cautiously or boldly. I think that's a good question to finish the webinar. Hi.
I don't know. I believe it depends on the case. There are always, you need um, to set up, you know, to think at the beginning. I guess you should think new ways, you know, to start small, trying to show some improvements. This is an initiative, you know, that could drive, you know, a sense of exploration within your company. I guess you should also, on a culture perspective, you need to always be reminding your people that they need to explore, and you need to make sure that everybody is innovating, not just a tiny group. But of course, creating the platform for everybody to innovate, as BBVA is doing, is extremely encouraging.
Yeah, I would add to that. I agree completely. I think it really depends on the situation, but that's an easy answer, right? If I would force to choose on which one's on which one cautious or bold, I would probably incline more for the bold attitude. And the main reason for that is not that is because an important part of the innovation is that the team that is innovating has the belief that they're doing something different, something important, and that they're changing things. And when a team knows that they're being cautious and that they will change things gradually, the motivation is a little bit less. So I think it's important to have the innovation teams motivated by that belief that they're going to change the world in a way. So it would also, of course, it depends on the situation, but I would say bold is a good attitude for innovators.
Yes.
Let's thank to all of you for joining us today.